People like to ask what a good story is. I think it's a trick question. Generally speaking, a good story is a story well told, and the more concise you are, the more space you leave for treatment and tone and atmosphere and all the effort of bringing in the viewer within the confines of the story that you want to tell, so that the actual plot has a proper impact instead of just being a succession of events that have no significance because they're fictional. You can take those fictional events and give a sense of reality to them within surprisingly unrealistic contexts. For example, space or fantasy, medieval fantasy. They rely on the suspension of disbelief that has to be accepted by the viewer very early on in the story, and then they can move forward. But some stories like to bring in this suspension of disbelief later on and start with a very realistic tone before moving to something odd. In any case, there's multiple ways of telling stories. The right way is the way that is more refined. It's a way that is conscious of why it's making this or that artistic choice and not just following on instinct or tradition. I'm not sure I'm the good judge to tell you what a good writer is. I like to think that the good writer does it for himself, but clearly if you get recognition from the audience, then I guess it's a sign of success. Some people are unhappy with success though, and some authors keep trying to tell the same story all through the years, even though they get success once or twice or even on another project. So all in all, I would say there are good stories, which are stories well told. I wouldn't go into saying there are any good authors, because every great work of art has been done by someone who has done tons of mistakes as well. And, well, it's about experimentation really. Some authors try to follow the rules and perfect them, and some try to be avant-garde and set up new rules or kick the machine and, have the viewer get a new viewpoint on traditions in storytelling. Historical storytelling is a tricky topic. Well, generally speaking, movie making is about actualizing past stories. We take old books and we adapt them over and over to the screen. Some films like Anna Karenina have been adapted like 20 times or more, all through the short time frame where cinema has existed. And when it comes to real stories, it's even trickier because we're only getting further and further from reality, and at the same time we're trying to bring back this reality within a context that is not the one that bore the story in the first place. So when we talk about the Second World War, we, generally speaking, in the 21st century, we will give a more important part to female characters than we would have 40 years ago. When we talk about the 18th century, we will not use the same makeup or costumes really that they did. We will put some modern fashion in them, and at every step of the way it's actualizing and trying to make the past understandable from the point of view of the present. So fidelity is a trick in this case, because if you want to be fully and honestly realistic, you have to use foreign languages that have been dead for centuries sometimes, and you get a result that is barely understandable by a modern viewer, or at least barely relatable. And the point of a story told through film is to embed the viewer in the experience, is to bring him in, or her in this case, because we're modern.